Before you watch this video, I need you to remember one number. 2. 2 body parts missing from an autopsy report. 2 different timelines that don't match. 2 hours. Just 2 hours that not one single person out of hundreds standing on that beach can fully explain. An 18-year-old boy went to a party island with 7 of his friends on the 4th of July. He came home in a body bag. And somewhere in between, there's a boat that radioed the Coast Guard saying it was sinking and then didn't actually leave the island for another 30 minutes. There's a mother who says she has photos of her son walking on the beach, alive, at the exact same time his friends were calling for a rescue without him. And there's a second autopsy that came back missing the one piece of tissue you'd need to check if someone had been strangled. If there were 1,000 people on that island that day, how does nobody know what happened to Nolan Wells? By the end of this video, you're going to have more questions than answers. And I think once you hear everything, you're going to understand why this case is now headed to a grand jury. If you're new here, hit subscribe right now because this is not a one-and-done story. We're going to be tracking this all the way to trial, and you do not want to find out the next update from someone else's video. Let's get into it. Nolan Xavier Wells was 18 years old. He played football, first at Ocean Springs High School, then at Southwest Mississippi Community College. Teammates describe him as easygoing, well-liked, the kind of guy whose own coach didn't hesitate. He was one of the first people out on the water searching for him when he went missing. On July 4th, 2026, Nolan did something completely normal for a kid on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. He loaded onto a private boat with a group of friends and headed out to Horn Island. Now, if you're not from the Gulf Coast, you need to understand what Horn Island actually is, because it matters. It's a barrier island. Completely uninhabited. No houses, no cell towers, no lifeguards, no rules. You can only get there by boat. And every 4th of July, hundreds, sometimes over 1,000, people pour onto that sand because for one day a year, it turns into a floating, lawless beach party in the middle of the ocean. Nolan had been there before. This wasn't some reckless first-time thing. This was routine. Until it wasn't. Here's a fact that's been confirmed across multiple outlets, and I want you to really sit with it, because this is where the entire case starts to unravel. The boat that brought Nolan and his friends to Horn Island did not actually leave the dock to head home until around 4:30 in the afternoon. 7 people were on that boat when it finally left. Nolan was not one of them. Let that sink in for a second. 7 friends went out to the island together. 7 friends got on a boat to go home. And one of them, Nolan, was not there. So, what happened before that boat left? This is where it gets complicated. At around 4 p.m., a full 30 minutes before that boat actually departed, a call comes into Mississippi's Department of Marine Resources. One of the boys on the boat is on the phone with a dispatcher, a woman named Vicky. He tells her the bilge pump has failed, and they're taking on water near the west tip of Horn Island. This 911-style call has become the single most dissected piece of audio in true crime circles since it leaked online. And here's the problem nobody's talking about enough. There isn't just one version of this audio floating around. There are at least 3 or 4. Some slowed down. Some with the background noise stripped out and enhanced. Some with random captions added by accounts claiming they can hear specific words that may or may not actually be there. Why does that matter? Because if this case ever reaches trial, only the original, unaltered recording is admissible in court. Anything enhanced by some anonymous TikTok account can get thrown out in about 5 seconds. A defense attorney just has to say it was tampered with, and it's gone. On the real, verified call, here's what you can actually hear. The boy gives his GPS coordinates. He confirms everyone on board is in good health. And this is the part that raises eyebrows. He declines a Coast Guard rescue and instead asks to just be towed back to the mainland. His voice, by nearly every description, is calm. Notably calm for a group of teenagers who supposedly just watched their boat start taking on water in open ocean. Now, there are claims circulating online that in the background of that call, you can hear someone say a specific name or a phrase about checking someone's chest. I want to be straight with you. Audio experts disagree on this. Some of it may be nothing but cell service static. Some of it may be real. Until a forensic audio analyst, the kind who testifies under oath in a courtroom, not the kind who posts a slowed-down clip for views, confirms it, anyone telling you with certainty what that background noise says is guessing. And in a case this serious, guessing isn't good enough. But here's what we do know, confirmed by GPS tracking data obtained by investigators. The boat did not actually leave the area until around 4:30 p.m., 30 minutes after that sinking emergency call was made. 30 minutes where a boat supposedly taking on water just stayed there, floating fine. So if the boat wasn't actually sinking, or wasn't sinking badly enough to leave for another half hour, then why make the call at all? And more importantly, where was Nolan during those 30 minutes? This is the part of the case that I think should be getting a lot more attention than it is. While she was still out there searching for her son, Nolan's mother, Christine Wansley, posted publicly asking anyone with photos or video from around 4:30 p.m. to come forward, because she said she had received images showing Nolan walking on the beach at almost that exact time. Read that again. The distress call happens around 4:00 p.m. The boat doesn't leave until 4:30 p.m. and there are reports from his own mother placing Nolan alive, walking on the beach, during that same window. If that's accurate, it changes two things immediately. 1. It strongly suggests Nolan was never even on that boat during the emergency. He was still on land the entire time his friends were on the phone with the marine dispatcher. 2, and this is the bigger one, it means somebody on that beach, out of literally hundreds of people, was the last person to see Nolan Wells alive. Somebody always is. Somebody saw him last, said something to him last, walked away from him last. As of the most recent reporting, investigators have interviewed roughly 60 witnesses trying to answer exactly that question. They still don't have a clean answer. There are also secondhand accounts, sources with knowledge of the investigation, suggesting Nolan may have still been trying to catch a ride off the island as late as 5:30 or 6 p.m. That's hours after his friend's boat left without him. If that's true, it means Nolan survived well past the moment his friends called for help. He was alive, on an island crawling with 1,000 strangers, for hours afterward. And whatever happened to him, happened somewhere in that crowd, off camera, unseen by anyone willing to come forward. That's not a small detail in this case. That is the case. Nolan's body was recovered on the morning of July 6th, found in the water off Horn Island, roughly 2 days after he was last confirmed seen alive. The state medical examiner conducted the first autopsy. That report is still sealed. As of this video, we do not know what it concluded. Not the family, not the public. Nobody outside that office has seen it. So Nolan's family did something a lot of grieving families do when they don't trust they're getting the full picture. They paid for an independent second autopsy. And this is where things get uncomfortable. When the second medical examiner received Nolan's body, two things were missing: the lungs and the throat. Now, the lungs being gone is, on its own, less alarming. If drowning is even a possibility, lung tissue is often one of the first things an examiner takes for analysis. That part could be completely explainable. The throat is a different story. Throat tissue is what you examine when you're checking for strangulation, for a blow to the neck, for damage to the hyoid bone, that small, fragile bone that, when fractured, is one of the clearest physical signs of manual or blunt force trauma to the neck. So, ask yourself the question investigators are asking right now. Why would the original examiner need that specific tissue? What exactly were they looking for? On top of that, there have been independent descriptions of discoloration on the back of Nolan's head, near the base of the skull. Now, I want to be responsible here. That kind of discoloration can be completely innocent. It can be ordinary post-mortem blood pooling, something that happens naturally after death. Or it could be evidence of impact, without the full sealed report, without a microscope on that exact tissue. Nobody outside that examiner's office can tell you which one it is. So here's the headline everyone needs to actually hear, because it's more important than any theory. The second independent autopsy came back listing cause and manner of death as undetermined, pending further investigation. Not homicide, not accident. Undetermined. That single word is doing more work in this case than almost anything else. Now here's the part of this case that honestly makes it so much messier than it needed to be. The sheer amount of fake evidence that's flooded social media since day one. A photo went viral, allegedly showing Nolan alive at a packed pool party, being used as proof he actually made it off the island and something happened to him afterward. Turns out, that photo was taken a full week earlier, on June 27th, verified through metadata from other photos taken that same night. It had nothing to do with July 4th at all. A video went viral of someone on the beach yelling, "Give me back my phone," shared everywhere as if it captured Nolan in a confrontation right before he disappeared. One of Nolan's actual friends came forward and said, "That's not Nolan's voice. That's his voice." And Nolan isn't even in the footage. There's a picture allegedly showing Nolan on a stranger's boat with an unidentified woman near him. Side-by-side comparisons circulating online suggest the undoctored version shows a completely different person. That one's still disputed, so treat it with caution until a credible outlet, not a comment section, verifies it. And then there's the rumor mill claiming Nolan's body showed signs of being beaten or burned when it was transported for the second autopsy. That claim isn't reflected anywhere in the actual reported findings, which, so far, describe no visible signs of blunt force trauma at all. Here's the pattern, and it's not subtle. Nearly every single smoking gun that's gone viral in this case has either been debunked, misattributed to the wrong person, or is completely unverifiable, including some pieces of evidence that were amplified early on by the family's own legal team before being fact-checked. I want to be really clear about what that does and doesn't mean. It does not mean nothing suspicious happened to Nolan Wells. It means the loudest voices online are more often than not wrong. And the real answers in this case are not going to come from a TikTok audio edit or a screenshot with no source. They're going to come from forensic evidence and sworn testimony in front of a grand jury. So let's strip away every rumor and lay out only what's actually solid. Nolan's friend's boat did not leave Horn Island until around 4:30 p.m., 30 minutes after reporting a sinking emergency. Nolan was not on that boat. There is evidence, from sources with direct knowledge of the investigation, that Nolan remained on the island after that boat departed, possibly as late as 6 p.m. The independent autopsy is officially listed as undetermined, pending further findings, including a still-sealed original report that the public has never seen. And out of hundreds of witnesses on that beach that day, investigators, after 60 interviews, still have not been able to definitively establish who is the last person to see Nolan Wells alive. A former FBI agent who reviewed the case publicly stated that, based on what she understands, the evidence currently points toward an accident, while also cautioning that more details could still surface before this is over. The case is now reportedly headed toward a grand jury in Mississippi, which means one of two things is coming. Either charges get filed, or investigators continue building the case under subpoena power, forcing witnesses to testify under oath instead of just talking to reporters. Until that grand jury does its work, and until that sealed autopsy report finally becomes public, every theory, every insider audio clip, every viral photo is exactly that. A theory. What we know for certain is this: a mother is still waiting for real answers about her son. An 18-year-old boy went to a party island with 7 of his friends on the 4th of July and came home in a way that nobody who loved him will ever fully make peace with. And somewhere out there on that beach, among 1,000 strangers, somebody knows something they haven't said yet. We're going to keep tracking every single update on this case as it happens, the grand jury, the sealed autopsy, all of it. If you want to be here the moment real answers finally drop, hit subscribe right now, because I promise you, this is not the last video we make about Nolan Wells. And before you go, I want you in the comments. Listen to that dispatch call again, if you can find the original. 30 minutes between a sinking boat and it actually leaving the island. That gap right there, that's the whole case. What do you think really happened to Nolan Wells?